This program is going to read a text file at a URL and write to a text file some of the contents from the original text file. To do that, I've got to begin by providing a string address, the page location, and creating a new scanner to open the stream and get the information from the text file. I'm going to follow the basic formula from the text where it asks you to create a string with the address, a URL, and a scanner in. I have to import java.net to get the page location to show up, and you'll see that displayed up here at the top. And I also have to import the scanner, just like normal, to open the stream and read from. Now this other error here is saying that I need to add a throws declaration. What does that mean? Our program needs to be able to handle an error. In the case that it cannot open the string address, maybe the web page is unavailable or there's an error in our string that we've typed out for the address. We need to plan for those errors by using a throw declaration. Inside of the main method, we add the words throw IO exception. This means whenever it can't find an input or an output file, the program is just going to terminate. I do have another import that I'll have to put in here, the IO exception class. We'll see in a little bit how this works. But for now, we're just going to get our print writer ready so that we can write to the specific files. Again, another import to get the print writer into the program. And anytime that we want to write to this file, selectedbooks.txt, we're going to use the word out, just like we're used to doing with system.out, but instead we're just going to write out to write to this specific file. We do not need to create this file ahead of time. If it is already created, the print writer will just erase what's there and write to it new. If it doesn't exist the first time that we run our program, print writer will create it and then it will write to it. When this file is created, it ends up inside of our project folder for Eclipse. So my project is called Read Input. If I go to that folder now, you'll see that there's no file there called Selected Books. Here I am in the Read Input project folder. You'll see here's my source code and here's my bin file folder. Right now there is no selectedbooks.txt file, but we'll watch that be created whenever we run the program the first time. For now, let's just practice writing to that file. Let's just use our out.println to print our name to that file. I also need to make sure that I close both my scanner and my print writer. So down at the very bottom, I'm going to go ahead and do that now so I don't forget. As you'll remember, we did not have selectedbooks.txt. I'm going to run this program and you'll see it be created and we'll see what's in it. Right away you can see that I have an error message that didn't allow my program to run. And I can actually get an idea of what's going on. I have a 403 for URL, so that means that it couldn't find that specific file at that location. And right away I actually can see what I did. I forgot the S at the end of my HTTPS, but we're going to modify our program at the end to handle this type of exception. Once I add in the S, it should run, but you'll notice down here in the console I don't have anything running. My clue that it ran is that I don't have it currently running. The red dot is not there and it does say terminated. So if I look over here at my file, you can now see I have a selectedbooks.txt that was created, and I'll double click it, and inside that folder or inside that file you'll see Kelly was written. So whenever I go, if I wanted to write more, you can see my update to my file. So it's pretty sweet. We know it's working. We're getting the connection to the page and we're getting the print writer out to the text file. So now let's start processing this. To begin, I'm just going to create a string called value so you can see what the text file holds. I'm going to check to make sure that the text file has the next line. If it does, I'm going to grab it and store it in value, and then I'll print out the value inside a value to the console. So let's see what the text document holds. You can see it contains a bunch of textbook titles and editions for the textbook. So let's practice getting that to run right just out to our text file. All I have to do is just modify this by removing the word system, and it's going to automatically print out to the selectedbooks.txt file. And just so you can see a little bit of a difference, we'll have it print some dashes in between each one. Now my program will run. Doesn't look like anything's happened though, but we're going to go over here to our text file, and you'll see here's our first line, and then we've got our textbooks being read in, followed by a dash. So far so good. Now I want to add in an if statement so that if the textbook is the 8th edition, it only writes to the selected books text file. You can do that with an if statement. If the value contains 8th, then we want to write it out to the text file. And if it doesn't contain 8th, then it's just going to continue on. So let's take a look and see what it should give us. We should have 1, 2, 3 books written out to the text file after it runs. I run it, and here are my results. Perfect. What if I wanted to write the 8th edition books to the 8th edition text file and the 7th edition books to the 7th edition text file? I can do that by creating more than one print writer. So I'm going to copy this statement, and I'm going to change my files to be called 7th edition books and 8th edition books. I can't have both of them be out, so I'm going to say out to 7th and out to 8th, just to keep it clear. I'm going to go ahead and print out my name to both the 7th and the 8th file. Have to adjust my close statement too. Got to make sure that I close the 7th and the 8th. Now if the value contains 8th, we're going to print out to 8. Otherwise, if the value contains 7th, then we're going to print out to the 7th edition books text file. All right, let's run it and see what we get. If I go over here, now I have 2 files, one called 7th edition, one called 8th edition. Let's take a look. In 7th edition, I have my name, and then I have one book with 7th edition, and in the 8th, I have my 3 books for the 8th edition. And I still have my original file called selected books that held my 8th edition selections. So that's how we can write to textbooks. Now let's talk about what to do in case this URL doesn't work. Like maybe we type it incorrectly and our program doesn't execute, which is exactly what it should do. We should get an exception if the file doesn't exist. We can plan for these types of exceptions with a try and a catch block. Inside our try block is going to be the code that we would like to try. If that code doesn't work, then we're going to have a catch block where we catch the potential exceptions that we know might happen. To create a try catch block, we just type in the keyword try with the open curly bracket, and we go to the very end of our code, which at this case is after we close our scanners and our print writers, and I put in a curly bracket. So we're going to try this code here, and we're going to catch any errors, one of those being the IO exception error. We're going to catch that error, and we're going to give a customized error message back, something that better explains the error that we've received rather than exception at thread main. One key component to these catch errors is that you have to give it a name. So just kind of like, sometimes you'll see the word exception there, or I just like to use E because it's nice and simple. And then open and close curly brackets. And in here I can use the E to print out a message. I can print a stack trace, which gives back the standard error, but we're going to make a more customized error. We're going to say system out to our console, file not found. So now whenever I run this, if I try, notice that I don't have a text2.txt. So I'm going to run this now. And instead of us getting the standard print trace message, we just get file not found. So this is part of catching exceptions. We try what we need to try, and if we get an error and we need the program to terminate, we're going to catch that exception and give it a meaningful explanation.